Hey everyone, it's VM Campos, Magic Fan. I've got a brand new deck tech video for you. It's Old Gnawbone, the biggest, baddest dragon in the new Adventures in the Forgotten Realms set for Magic the Gathering. This is the exclusive full-length Commander version of the video. Perhaps you came here from the short Brawl version. Thank you for visiting. Thank you for supporting me and being in the VMC crew. The full deck list is in the description. So let's talk about making an amazing mono green deck for Commander. Old Gnawbone, 7 mana, it's a 7/7, it's flying. Fun fact, it is actually the largest flying creature that has ever existed in the world of Magic. Plus it makes a bunch of treasure tokens when your creatures deal damage. And look at this flavor text. The ancient green dragon, Cloudy Milantar, is often seen with a mangled corpse dangling from her mouth. Brutal. Alright, so this deck that we're going to build here is all about big mana spells. So let's get started with the land base. Our land base is made out of 26 forests. Pick the art of whatever set you like. You can go with snow-covered forests, I guess, but there isn't really any snow synergy. But we know that the one true answer are 4th edition forests. Beautiful. We'll put some fetch lands into the deck, so that means Evolving Wilds, Fabled Passage, Terramorphic Expanse, and Prismatic Vista. Now you might be wondering, why are we putting fetch lands in a monocolored deck? That's for deck thinning, of course. That's the big brain deck tech for you. This will help you get to the good stuff faster. We'll put Castle Garenbrig into the mix. This makes a bunch of mana for creatures or their activated abilities, so that goes in the deck. It doesn't start off as a land, but we're going to put Growing Rites of Itlimoc in the deck, because once it transforms, it's that newfangled, more affordable Gaia's Cradle. Tap it to add lots of mana based on your creatures. And then in the meantime, you get creatures off the top of your deck. Let's talk about land hate. And no, I don't mean mass land destruction, we're not monsters. We want to pinpoint deal with troublesome lands. Field of Ruin, very affordable, destroys a non-basic land. Encroaching Wastes does the same thing, costs a little bit more. Tectonic Edge is also along those lines, with a little stipulation. And Wasteland also gets the job done. You can put in Strip Mine there if you want, I guess. We need to ramp into big things, so nothing beats Cultivate, and its cousin Kodama's Reach. Field Trip is a newer version of this type of card, plus it lets you learn. You can discard a card you don't need to draw another. And lastly, Omen of the Hunt does the same thing, gives you an enchantment, which you can then sacrifice to scry 2. You can know what the future brings. After that mana ramp, we want Mana Rocks. Good old Soul Ring goes in the deck. Get this amazing Secret Layer version to really show off your bling. Arcane Signet is now an auto-include, so get it in there. Cold Steel Heart gets the job done too. 2 mana, gives you 1 more mana of your chosen color. Comes in tapped, so obviously play it on turn 2. And Moss Diamond, very similar. Gives you green mana for 2 mana investment, comes in tapped. Next up, let's talk about mana ramp in the form of enchantments. 2 mana, Fertile Ground, enchants your land, and adds an additional color of mana. Wolfwillow Haven is pretty much exactly the same, but perhaps better, because then it can also become a wolf creature token in a pinch. In the 3 mana slot, we can work with Overgrowth. 3 mana makes your land tap for 3 mana in total. So it does find the path, but then it lets you venture into the dungeon, that newfangled ability from AFR. So what are we doing with all of this mana? Summoning creatures, of course. Let's start off with some little creatures first. Moss Viper, 1 green mana, gives you a 1/1 Deathtouch. Tajuru Blightblade is the elf rogue version of the same card. And so is Gnarlwood Dryad, although it does have Delirium attached, so it becomes a 3/3. Amazing art. Lastly, we'll put the Sedge Scorpion in there. So we have 4 1 mana 1/1 Deathtouch creatures. That's to hold off your opponents while you ramp up to the big stuff. Such as Questy B, 4 mana, 4/4, Vigilance, Deathtouch, Haste cannot be blocked by little creatures, excess damage hits planeswalkers, and damage cannot be prevented. This card is amazing. Vorinclex is amazing in its own way, 6 mana, 6/6, trample haste. Messes with your opponent's counters, improves your own counters. When you just have to hoof your opponents, here you go. Craterhoof Behemoth, 8 mana, 5/5, haste, gives all your creatures +X/+X. This can really end the game. And what's more impressive than a Craterhoof Behemoth, how about the Tarrasque? 9 mana, 10/10, and it has Ward of 10, as long as you cast it, which you will be able to. 9 mana is no big deal in this deck. And what's this? Whenever this attacks, it fights target creature defending player controls. So take out their only blocker that's left, and then roll in with your 10/10. I love you, Tarrasque. Will you marry me? Let's talk about our belligerent creatures. These are all the creatures that enter the battlefield and fight. Kogla the Titan Ape, 6 mana, 7/6. When it enters, it fights an opponent's creature. When it attacks, it destroys an artifact or enchantment in a mad rage, and then you pay 2 and bounce back a human to make it indestructible. Thorn Mammoth is pretty much the same thing, although what's interesting is that whenever any other creature enters the battlefield from now on, this does its job and fights. Such a mossy big boy. Raise your foes with the Foe-Razer Regent, 7 mana, 4/5 dragon with flying. It fights when it enters, and when it fights, make it larger at the end of your turn. If you look very closely, you'll see that all of those guys in the background are totally torched up. And lastly, in the fight creatures, the Apex Altasaur, 9 mana, 10/10. When it enters, it fights. And what's this? It has Enrage, so when it gets dealt damage, it fights again. This is like a fascinating board wipe, because you can have it keep fighting and fighting and fighting until it's all tuckered out. Let's move on to my category of scary creatures, the 7 mana, 7/7 Rampaging Brontodon with Trample. With Trample, it's amazing. What's more amazing is that when it attacks, it gets +1 until end of turn for each land you control. So if you hard casted this, 7 mana, this is a 14/14 with Trample when it attacks. I've easily gotten this to be a 20/20 creature with all the ramp in the deck. And you can too. Apex Devastator is a 10/10 for 10 mana, and then it cascades not once, not twice, not thrice, but thrice. That's not a word, but that means 4 times. You get to cascade, you get to cast 4 things for free when you cast the Apex Devastator. Quite devastating. Check out this amazing art on Thrasta, Tempest's Roar. 12 mana for a 7/7, but it costs 3 less to cast for each other spell cast this turn. And then you get a Trample and Haste, so here's another Haste creature sneaking in. It tramples over Planeswalkers. So once you finish off the opponent's Planeswalkers, the rest of the damage goes to the player. And then it's got Hexproof the turn you summoned it. And lastly, we have Galta herself, the Primal Hunger, 12 mana for 12/12 with Trample. You can reduce it down to 2 mana because it's got the X reduction cost. Speaking of X, the next group of creatures are X creatures. Spoiler alert, they're all Hydras. Here we have Voracious Hydra, green plus X, it's a 0/1 to start off with. It's got Trample, it enters the battlefield with X +1s, and then you can also choose double those +1s or have it fight. With all the mana you're making, you're going to get a huge creature that fights to take down one of your opponent's troublesome critters. Mistcutter Hydra is a green X for a 0/0. It cannot be countered. It has haste and protection from blue. Take that to Fairy Mages. And then it enters with X counters. Hungering Hydra is a green plus X. It's a Hydra, it's a 0/0. It enters with X counters. It cannot be blocked by more than 1 creature. And when it's dealt damage, put that many +1 counters. So the chump block, this gets bigger and bigger. And the last X creature is the Genesis Hydra, green X. When you cast the spell, reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put a non-land permanent card with converted mana cost of X or less from among them onto the battlefield and shuffle. So you get a free card when you cast this card. Pay a lot of X mana to get the most value. That's a good Genesis Hydra. I'm just waiting for the Super Nintendo Hydra. Let's talk about removal. This will mostly come in the form of creature-based removal with these various bite effects. Now there's fight and there's bite. Bite effects are a little bit better because your creature deals damage to the opponent's creature and none comes back to it. Ram Through is a favorite, 2 mana instant, and it also has Trample. Any excess damage goes over to the opponent. I hope they print more of these cards in the future. Good old Rabbit Bite is also in the deck, of course. One of the newer effects, Devouring Tendrils. Same sort of idea, but then you gain 2 life. Add insult to injury. How about insult them the most and injure them the most? Primal Might, green plus X. Target creature gets plus X, and then it fights. It's true what they said. The shaman looked at the world through Galta's eyes and understood that everything else was his prey. Let's talk about graveyard removal. In Commander, people are playing lots of graveyard shenanigans, so we've got 4 cards in here to help deal with that. Tormod's Crypt, classic, 0 mana, tap it, exile all cards from a single graveyard. Soul Guide Lantern is a newer addition, 1 mana. When it enters, it exiles 1 card from a graveyard. Tap it to then exile all opponents' graveyards. Or if you don't need to do that, sacrifice it to draw a card. For more consistency, we've got 2 more. Sentinel Totem, single mana. When it enters Scry, then exile itself to exile all cards from all graveyards. And the Crook of Condemnation, 2 mana, to selectively exile a card from any graveyard, or exile itself to clear out all graveyards. Get rid of things permanently. Let's deal with our opponent's artifacts and enchantments. Wilt, 2 mana, instantly deal with any artifact or enchantment, or cycle it for 2 if you don't need it at the moment. Return to Nature lets you destroy artifacts, enchantments, or exile any card from a graveyard. Crack Open lets you destroy artifacts and enchantments and then make a treasure token, so it pays for itself, kind of. When Destroy won't quite cut it, how about exile an artifact or enchantment with amazing art? When you absolutely, positively have to get rid of just about anything, let's talk about some of these great kill spells. Bramble Crush, 4 mana, sorcery, destroy target non-creature permanent. Get rid of a land, get rid of a planeswalker, just no creatures. One of my new favorite get rid of anything cards, Introduction to Annihilation, costs 5 mana. Lets you exile target non-land permanent. Little bit of downside, but it gets rid of anything. Meteor G is here to help you. 7 mana, you get a 3/3, and when it enters the battlefield, destroy any target non-land permanent. Speaking of 7 mana, Scour from Existence. Instantly exile any target permanent. Get rid of anything that bothers you for 7 mana instantly. 7 mana in this deck, that is a pittance. Let's cover some card draw. I like Cosmos Elixir, 4 mana artifact, gives you life or gives you a card. I love the new Eye of Vecna, 2 mana, lose 2 life and get 1 card, and then every upkeep pay 2 life and 2 mana to draw a card. Rise Up with Garruk's Uprising, 3 mana enchantment, draws you a card if you've got a big creature, and draws you a card every time you summon a big creature, and gives your big creatures trample. Toski is some interesting card draw. This cannot be countered, it's indestructible, it must attack every turn, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. You draw a card for every instance of your creature dealing damage to an opponent. Love it. We don't want our opponents to recur stuff from the graveyard, but we certainly do. Nature Spiral, 2 mana sorcery, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, cast it all again. Or how about the classic Regrowth? 2 mana, return any card from your graveyard back to your hand. Road of Return does just about the same thing for double green mana, although you can choose to return that permanent card, or put your commander into your hand from the command zone, or pay 2 more in total and do both. Here's a new card, green, 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 X. Sorcery, return X, target cards with different mana values from your graveyard to your hand. If 8 or more cards were returned this way, your life total becomes equal to your starting life total. This will get you so far ahead of your opponents. A good deck needs some good planeswalkers. Let's start off with Garruk Unleashed. 4 mana, 4 loyalty, makes your creatures bigger, makes other creatures, gives you an amazing emblem. Nissa joins the party, where you can untap your lands, return stuff from your graveyard, or get another amazing emblem. One of the newest planeswalkers joins us here, Vivian Reed. You can look at your library, destroy artifacts, enchantments, or flyers, and again get another amazing emblem. And the latest green planeswalker, Eliwick Tumblestrum, get in the deck. She lets you venture, draws you cards, makes you emblems, all the good stuff. Alright, let's talk about when everything is falling apart, board wipes. Nevinyral's Disc, 4 mana artifact enters tapped, then later pay 1 and tap, and destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. If the game is getting away from you, get the game away from everyone else. Oblivion Stone is a selective board wipe, 3 mana for this artifact, then pay 4, and tap and put a fate counter on one of your permanents to protect it, and then 5 mana and tap sacrifice, destroy each non-land permanent without a fate counter on it. So keep your stuff and get their stuff out of the way. And when all is lost, you might have to cast All is Dust. 7 mana tribal sorcery Eldrazi. Each player sacrifices all colored permanents they control. Obviously, very powerful spell. Obviously, be very careful with this spell. But if things are looking very grim, you have an answer for it. And that was my old Gnawbone deck. What do you think? Where did I get it right? Where did I get it wrong? Tell me in the comments. What would you improve upon? What would you remove and add instead? Have you made your own Gnawbone deck? Tell me all about it in the comments. And once again, thank you for being part of the VMC crew by pledging. You'll keep unlocking exclusive stuff when you contribute at least 99 cents per month. You get more perks at the higher tiers, so don't forget to check what they are. Don't forget to tell everyone you know about joining the VMC crew to unlock the exclusive stuff. I would really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and comment, or old Gnawbone will gnaw on your bones. This has been VM Campos, and I'll see you in the Forgotten Realms.